Hi, my name is Suzy Wood, and I'm an integrative nutrition health coach. And I'm so excited to share with Pearl today.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clean? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl again with Women's Successful Living, and you're on another episode of Conversations with Pearl. And I'm so excited today. You guys, we're all about self-care here. How can we take care of our health? How do we put ourselves first? How do you become that shiro of your life? And today is no different because we have an amazing guest today. Her name is Suzy Wood, and she is an integrative nutrition health coach and owner of True Wellness Within, where she works with women to get control of their lives and their health after divorce. And that's a huge thing because you guys, there's so many changes that come through divorce, right? So I'm excited because her clients, she helps them achieve their goals by addressing both food and lifestyle choices, because divorce can be a calling card to have that do-over, that relaunch of yourself and live your best life. After her divorce, Suzy left her career in high-tech marketing, re-educated, started her own business, and now is living her best life ever. Welcome to the show, Suzy.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. I love what you do because I've been married over 40 years, but I haven't been through a divorce. But tell us how we got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I am divorced. I was divorced about 3 years ago. We started the process probably about 5 years ago. It takes a long time to get through the divorce. But to be honest, I feel like my marriage fell apart many, many, many years ago. I was actually living abroad, living in England for about 11 years. And so I was really in a bit of a quandary, like, how would I possibly get divorced and still be living abroad? Like, how do you even do that? Because, American, obviously. And plus, I didn't have a lot of support there. I had friends, but not friends who really knew me that well. I really needed my family. So, marriage, it wasn't terrible. We got along. We were fine. We had our nice little family unit with two boys. But once I came back to the States, to New York, I decided that this really was the right timing. So we started the divorce process, and it was difficult because for a while, we were still living in the same house and trying to go through all of that. And that really is very many levels, trying to raise a family and in a way almost pretend like nothing's happening. But then you have all this drama. And you have to learn a whole new language, dealing with lawyers and financial people and all this stuff that comes up that it's very, very difficult. It's very stressful. And that stress really affected me physically, actually. So once I decided to re-educate and get into nutrition, I had a totally different career. I decided to work with other women to help them get their lives in control after divorce. Because I figured it out. I managed to live and am still living a wonderful, really happy life. But it definitely took a lot of work, and it took a lot of introspection and to put the pieces back together. And we all deserve to live a happy life. So we should be able to do that. And divorce doesn't have to define us.
I love that. First of all, I can't imagine being abroad and, having young kids and going through that situation. And, like you said, it's so different in different countries than America. And then you've got, the stuff for America and you're England. It's like, wow. And then all the stress on top of the stress just from divorce, and you add that stress onto it. It just, I just can't imagine the weight of that. And as women, we put extra weight on ourselves already with stress. So going through that, I can just imagine like some of that stress. So walk us through, like, what would you say was the biggest thing that as you were going through that, you were like, wow, I want to make sure that, like, that biggest takeaway to say, I know this affects your health, all that, but what was your biggest, I don't want to say your biggest takeaway that you said, I need women to know this?
Mm. Oh my gosh, that's a big question. I mean, I just know for me personally, even though I was going through a very stressful event that lasted for, years, I wanted to make sure that I could still be living a healthy life. So, we're so tempted when we're living under stress to go to those comfort foods, the mac and cheese or the nachos or the ice cream or whatever it is. And I made a very conscious effort not to do that because I knew if I ate foods that really didn't nourish my body, I was going to feel even worse. So not only am I going through, very stressful situation now, when we eat foods like that, we tend to gain weight and we tend to not sleep as well. And sometimes they don't agree with you. They're very heavy. So, I mean, I know what my go-tos were. And if I ate like that consistently, I would not be very happy. So I made a very conscious effort, and it's one of the things I work with my clients on really understanding the foods that nourish you properly, so you can feel good and feel, it's a time that you're already under stress. So why put your body under even more stress? So nutrition, properly getting the nutrition that I needed was really critical, because then it helped regulate things. So then I could sleep a little bit better, which was actually, my sleep was terrible when I was going through that stress. But at least I knew I was nourishing my body and, trying my best. And then I would have a little bit more energy maybe to move my body, so that, again, that helped me keep a little bit healthy going through that process.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because I was just at a network event this morning, and we were talking about emotional intelligence, and the things we do when we're stressed and anxiety and all those, what we turn to. And I know, like you were saying, for me, same thing. It's like those comfort foods. I lost
Right.
my son last July in a tragic car accident. And
Oh,
I can tell you that I found myself, like, it was July 25th. And by like mid-August, I was like, I wasn't consciously aware of it, right? Like, it was happening, but I wasn't aware. And so then I would say probably September, end of September, October, I was like, okay, this is getting out of control. I lost over 60 pounds before. I was pretty much
wow.
maintaining it. And I was like, I'm going down the rabbit hole fast. Right. So I
Yeah.
literally December, like mid-December, I was like, I need to get this under control. I need to grab it back, because we
Right.
do, like you said, it's the mac and cheese and all those ice cream, all those things I was turning to. My husband does his shopping, and I'd be like, oh, get this. And he would ask me, he goes,
Mm.
are you sure? And I'm like, don't question me, just get it, And
Right.
because we do, it's like our mind, we want that comfort food when we're
We
stressed.
want to feel better, so we, fill our mouths with
Yeah.
something that makes it, when we're going through something horrific. I mean, that's an awful situation to be
Yeah.
going through. I really feel for you.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
it's tragic, and a lot of people have a lot of tragedies in their lives, and we do often go for food as comfort. And so part of my program is looking at the foods that we eat and making sure that we're nourishing our body. But the other side of it is really looking at our lifestyle factors. And when you've gone through something like divorce, your lifestyle has changed tremendously. Your finances might be different. Most likely they are. Your living environment might be different because you may have had to sell your marital home. Maybe you've moved, or you're in the home, but maybe you have half the furniture you had, right? Your relationships certainly have changed. So we look at a lot of different lifestyle factors, and try to balance them out, because when your lifestyle factors are out of balance, you're much more likely to have those kinds of food cravings. So if you were in a toxic relationship, for example, it's very, very tempting, very easy to eat the wrong foods, because, again, like just what we were talking about, those, you reach for those comfort foods. So we try to balance the lifestyle factors first, and that more naturally puts our food in balance.
And like you said, that's so important, is to know what are those factors that we're dealing with. Because sometimes there's so much, like you said, losing your house, maybe half the furniture, or like you were just giving an example when we first came on, is having to live with that soon to be ex-spouse. That's stress
Yeah.
alone. And I,
Yes.
I have a couple of friends that had to do that. And then while they're going to do that, that ex is starting to date. It's like, they're like,
Oh my
"Go
gosh, yes.
back," and I had one friend who was like, he actually tried to bring her home, and she's like,
Oh God.
kidding me? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. She was so strong. And, I think she just put that brave front on, because once it all broke down, then it was like, okay, I've got to
Yeah.
deal with this. And so tell us, so you have two children. How old are your kids?
Mhm. They're 16 and 19.
So,
Mhm.
so how long have you been divorced?
Just hit the 3-year mark.
Okay. So they were a
Yeah.
little older when, that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's really ever a good age for them to go through
Yeah.
that. Mhm.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because my parents, they were married for, oh gosh, 42 years, I think. And they divorced, and I found out how my mom and dad met, which we won't talk about that here, but I was like, Ma, that should have been your first sign. And she's like,
Uh-huh.
you would have had you kids. And I'm like, and then my mom grew up in the Catholic Church, you don't get divorced, and all that. And finally
Mhm.
she, I was like, Mom, you're not happy. I think it's okay,
Right.
so, but to
Right.
go that long. So how did your kids respond to the situation, and how did you help them with that?
Yeah. Well, I actually, one of the first things I did was started working with a therapist. I actually found somebody who's a child psychologist, because I wanted to know from the kid's point of view what I needed to do. And that was really helpful. She also helped me understand just some things that my ex, just our communication. Um, so I felt like I was a little bit more empowered. And the conversations I had, which, you hear it from a lot of people, just reassure that the kids that they're loved. And obviously it has nothing to do with them. It didn't have anything to do with them. It was our relationship. Um, and I always had the idea that I didn't necessarily want him in my life anymore, but I definitely wanted him in my kids' lives. Children need both parents, whether they're in the same house or not. And I think would rather be happy in two homes than unhappy in one. So I felt like I kind of was a model of just being happy once we settled things, and I moved out, and I was living with my kids. The kids mostly were with me. I showed them that I was living my best life, that I was happy, that we had a wonderful, happy home. I set their rooms up in, nice, happy way. They didn't have to change schools. They really was the only thing that was different was that they occasionally went and saw their dad, and then they were with me. So it was just, we purposely set everything up so that they had two happy homes. And I feel like they got through it okay. And they still have two happy homes, and they're loved by two happy parents, because I know he's happy and I'm happy. So why wouldn't the kids be happy? Um, and I believe it was a therapist who said, as long as you keep the kids' lives as much the same as they possibly can be, obviously they're in different homes, but that's when they have the most success adjusting, when there's just their lives aren't affected really, which sounds strange, but you know um if they had their own rooms before and now they have to share a room, that's tough. That's changing their whole world. Changing schools obviously can upset things. So we just tried to keep everything the same. They did the same sports, they attended the same schools, they saw the same friends. Like everything was really the same. They had the same kind of lifestyle. We didn't really, didn't luckily have to adjust. And now, before, if we were going on vacations, we still went on vacations, right? If they were doing a particular activity, we kept up with that activity. So from their point of view, it didn't really change that much. They just saw us separately.
And I want the listeners to hear one thing first. Suzy's a coach. She
Mhm.
sought coaching. And, we often talk about that here on the show, is that it's okay for coaches to get coaches, because we need that as well.
100%.
Because, I've had many clients say, well, I was working with this coach and they said they did everything. I'm like, nobody's life is perfect. And if a coach is telling you that they have a perfect life, you need to fire them, right?
Find a different coach.
Exactly, because
Yes.
that's not the truth. And like you said, like I even myself, like when my son passed, I sought help. I sought somebody to talk to
Right.
walk through my feelings and make sure that I'm supporting my younger son in the right way, and my husband, and our family and all that entity. And I
Yeah.
love that you sought that help. And like you said too, like the therapist said, is trying to create that as normal as you can life for the children, I think is so
Hmm.
much easier. And I see that with my friends who are divorced or have gone through a divorce and their kids are now grown. That's the one thing they always talk about is try to make it as a normal transition, like you
Right.
said, loving homes, don't,
Yeah.
no animosity if at all possible. I mean, we all know there's
Right.
situations where that's not going to be 100%
Right.
possible.
There's a great quote. Two sane homes is better than one insane.
I love that. I
Right. But
love
I think you're absolutely right. Like having a team in place, I advise my clients all the time, get your people because you can't just rely on your family, even though you need your family.
that.
But I know I got to the point where some members of my family were like, I just can't hear anymore. This is so upsetting. It's stressing me out. I can only help you so much. And not that they didn't want to help me, they wanted to help me, but they just were at capacity. And you have to know who you can go to for certain things. So, I had friends who were like experts in finance. So I would go and ask them financial questions. There were other friends who were experts in legal stuff. I would go and ask them legal stuff. People in real estate, I would ask them real estate questions or, like, should I actually even be wanting to keep the home? That's a huge question. Most women do because we like to nest and our home is our, sacred ground. But financially, it's not always the right decision. And that was a big awakening for me because I was like, of course, I'm going to keep the home and the kids' lives are just going to stay the same. But I was like, I don't want the burden of that huge expense. And so I mean, I was lucky I'd only lived there about 3 years because again, we had moved back, so it was a new house for us. So I didn't have that attachment of being there for 20 years. So it's very much easier said than done. But as far as the team, it's crucial, I think, to have a therapist as well as a legal team, financial team, because the last thing you want to do is use your lawyer as a therapist because a lawyer is about $500 an hour, at least where I am. A therapist is considerably less. So, I'm sure your lawyer will be happy to hear all your problems, but it's not their expertise. That's not really where they can help you. And you're going to blow through money very quickly.
That's great advice. I love that. I like to call that have your league of support,
Yes.
have that league. My girlfriend Lisa calls it your balcony people and know what their talents are and it can help you through the
Yeah.
challenge. That's so important because and then also allow the grace for those that say, I can't,
Right.
it's too much for me. And that's
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. That was the one thing when our son passed. So when it happened, the three of us, my younger son, my husband and I, we got together because we don't have family here with us. And we're like, listen, no matter what, we're committed to every month. We get together at least once a month of him and his girlfriend and us. We
Mm.
cry in front of each other. We don't hold back any emotions because it's really important. That's a release. And then as our family was arriving, we told them the same thing. We don't want you to, I don't know who's coming out. We don't want you to hold back or anything either because it's really important that you show your emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's so important to have that support system, and I love that you created that and
Hmm.
then recognizing too. I think it's important for the listeners to recognize, like you said with the house, that it's not necessarily yeah, even if you had the house for 20 years, it doesn't mean I need to be tied to that house. I have a cousin who went through a divorce, and she's like, I didn't want the house, like you said, the burden and everything on it, the
Yeah.
memories. She's like, I don't want that, so she
That's
chose to
true.
go.
I felt the same way. Yeah, I really wanted to have a clean start and have my own place where, I could, even though we split the furniture basically, but I wanted all clean and new and start. I mean, this is part of the chapter two, like just moving on. For me, that's what I needed. I felt like that was a great break, that I was living in a new place. I could set it up the way I wanted to. It was just for me and my boys. And that was so sacred to me.
Yeah.
That's what I needed. And
Yeah.
some of my clients who are still living in that place, they say, oh, they look at the bookcase that they bought at the antique fair that they went to, and now they get caught up in those memories, and it makes them sad.
Right. Yeah.
And
It's
like
yeah.
that, to me, that's like punishing yourself, right?
It's that's a great point too, because like, I'll relate that back to my son. Like we would just this past weekend going through stuffed toys. Like I had them up in the rafters. So when they get married, they can go through what they want for their kids. And so we pull them all down. And I found I was so proud of myself because I was able to take the attachment and put it over here because
Yeah.
I missed him, but it's not, this toy is not going to bring him back for me. And then
Right.
go, okay, what can I do with these Who can I pay it forward? Some of them are worth money, so I put them up for sale, and that kind of thing. And I had some family members go, "You're getting rid of that?" I'm like, "Well, what am I supposed to do with it?" Like
Right.
and in my head, I was going, if I die tomorrow, who's going to want this? Right? It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and right now, all it's doing is sitting in a rafter. So it's not doing me any good. So let me
That's
pay
a
it
huge
forward.
realization. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it's a release in a way, it's
Yes.
like, it's not helping to keep that stuff. I mean, maybe there's a few things that you might want to keep. And I
Right.
feel a lot of this, I feel like our conversation is kind of centering around compartmentalizing, which is
Yes.
something that I did a lot because I still had to live my life. I had two kids to raise. I had to go to the grocery store. I had to, like life was still going on just because I was going through a divorce. So I had to compartmentalize. Like during this time, I'm going to talk about the legal stuff, or I'm going to get the documents or the whatever I had to do. But the rest of the time, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to meet my friends for lunch, or I'm going to work on a project that I'm doing, or whatever, meet clients and, do work. But I had that time where, and there was a lot of crap as well, a lot of nasty, not nasty, but difficult conversations that needed to happen. And I would, if they were really bothering me, I would mentally put them in a box, tie a ribbon around that box, put the box in a bag, put the bag in a case, put the case in a duffel bag, and then take that whole thing and throw it in the ocean. And then I throw the ocean in another ocean. I mean, like, seriously, I had to do this in my mind. I played this little game with myself that those thoughts are gone. I don't have to think about them. They don't have to eat away at me, because it's hard. I mean, you're mourning the loss of a relationship that you thought was going to last forever. It's really, it's very difficult. And so you have a lot of thoughts, you have a lot of feelings, and it's okay to feel them, just like get all that out. It's really important, but there's a time and a place, I think. And for me, that helped to compartmentalize and like, this is the time. And if I couldn't deal with it, or I was done dealing with it, I literally like threw it in the ocean in my mind.
I love that.
Not
Throw
to
it in the
pollute
ocean.
the
I
ocean.
love it.
Not that
I
that,
love it.
right. I don't want to encourage pollution, but it's mental.
Right. I think that's so powerful. So tell us, so you created this new business through what your experience you've gone through. You got your coaching certification through Integrated Health, and so how are you helping your clients? Like, what are some of the steps that they go through to help them? This like we're talking about compartmentalizing everything and helping them break down, and
Yeah.
identifying those areas that are holding them back. Walk us through
Yeah.
what, if I was your client, what can I expect?
Yeah. So I have a 5-month program that I take the clients through because it takes a long time to make new habits. Usually it's like 2 weeks for a habit to stick. So we meet every 2 weeks. We do a Zoom call and we, have their different lessons that I teach them, and also, a lot of checking in and support, goal setting along the way. So we start out usually looking at the lifestyle factors that I had mentioned. There's about 12 of them, and things like relationships, finances, home environment, creativity, joy, spirituality. I think I mentioned relationships, home cooking, because that's really critical on the nutrition side. And we figure out what's working and what isn't working. And we congratulate ourselves for the things that are working, because, we have to praise ourselves. That's how we sort of start making change, because we're so good at beating ourselves up, especially when we set goals for ourselves that don't end up working. So we praise ourselves for the areas in our lives that are going well. And then we start working on, maybe there's 2 or 3 areas that are not going that well. And then we take those areas and we start setting some SMART goals, very specific goals. They're attainable, they're measurable, they're realistic. And we make those goals, and then that's what we start working on in 1-month increments, 3-month increments, 5-month increments. And so we have these sort of smaller steps. So it's much more manageable when you kind of have a little outline that you can start chipping away at. And a lot of my program is just about positivity and meeting the client where they are, because there's no point in me coming in with an agenda like, these are the 10 steps that you need to do to get over your divorce. What worked for me might not, might not work for somebody else. So I meet them where they are, the areas that they need to work on, and I help them and guide them to achieving those goals. So, and it's really about setting appropriate goals and taking small steps, because oftentimes we're like, I want to run a marathon, but it's like, you don't even own sneakers, like let's just take it one step at a time. Let's buy the sneakers. Let's take that first walk, around my neighborhood. Let's take a walk, to the next neighborhood, and then maybe we start running. So, because we set these two big goals for ourselves, and then we fail, and then we beat ourselves up. So we take small goals, we praise ourselves along the way, then you're much more likely to want to repeat that. So, so that's really the beginning of the program. And then I offer a lot of support in between the sessions. And there's documents that I created, things like how to feel less lonely. On the nutritional side, I have recipes and ideas and different little cookbooklets that I offer them. We work a lot on sleep, because sleep is almost, I would say probably number one or two issue most people have problems with when they're under any kind of stress, whether it's divorce or anything else. So we figure out what's not working in their sleep, and try to address it, because it's not, it's not like I'm just not sleeping. Like, why are you not sleeping? What's causing that stress or whatever? So yeah, that's pretty much how the 5-month program works.
I love, many times Suzy said praise, like give yourself praise, because as women we beat ourselves up way too much. Yeah. We put way too much, we've talked about that earlier in the episode, on our shoulders. We think we got to be the fixer, the pleaser, take care of everything. And I was talking with somebody a couple weeks ago about this. I said, it comes because I know, like, my granny, that's what she did. They took care of everything, right? And then that's what my mom learned. And about my mom's generation is when they were working out of the house. And then my generation, I'm 58 years young, we did both. We worked out of the house and we were working, taking care of the house, right? And I'm blessed because like I said, I've been married almost 40 years, and I have somebody who helps me clean and do laundry and everything. And it's really important that we give ourselves grace to not think we could do everything at all.
Right.
And really, really important. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up.
We have to praise ourselves. And there's another saying that I love. If we spoke to our friends the way we speak to ourselves, we'd have no friends. Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So we have to, it's the only way that we can really move forward. And I feel like my program is just all full of positivity and encouraging people, and they're like, oh, but I can't do that. But yes, you can. And this is how you're going to be able to do it. I mean, it's a coach, right? This is a coaching program. Just like you would hire a tennis coach. Tennis coach isn't going to go, yeah, you're right, you can't. Yeah. You're right. Pack up your bag and go home. I mean, no.
You can't hit the ball. Get out of here.
Yeah, you can't hit the ball. So just go home.
Yeah, and it's all about learning the skills, right? Learning the skills to help us get to where we want to go. That's what's so important. And always, like, the praise. The praise is so, so important, because listen, if you know the perfect person in the world, I want you to send them to me. I'll give them $1 million. I don't have the $1 million because I know you're not going to find anybody, but right. Life is not scripted. We don't know tomorrow. Like with my son, I went to bed at midnight, did not know I wasn't going to happen the next day. So we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know, the next day your spouse may come home and say, I don't want to be married anymore. You don't know what that's going to happen. And having the tools, like what Suzy's talking about, we're talking about today, is so, so important. And we have to give ourselves grace, because we deserve that. And, and ask for help is so important. Have those people on your balcony or in your league, whoever that is for you. It's really, really important. And I'm glad, Suzy, you reminded of us that. So I'm going to do a little shift here for us. So we've talked about your coaching. We've talked about the things, how you progress through this change in your life. But Suzy, what we want to know, because we're all about self-care here, we want to know, what's the day in the life of Suzy for self-care?
Oh, okay. Well, I start my day usually with a cup of herbal tea. I don't actually drink caffeine anymore because I identified that it was disrupting my sleep. So I got rid of it. So I have a nice cup of herbal tea, and I end up feeding and walking my dog first thing in the morning. So I get outside, and that's also part of like getting outside in the sunshine. You reset your circadian rhythm, again, helping with my sleep. And so I walk in for about 20 minutes or so, and then I come back, and I usually do one of two. I either do a HIIT class at home or I do a yoga class at home. And nothing crazy, just like maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. And I try to alternate every other day. And that's kind of how I start my day, shower, get dressed, and then I start working. And then try to get outside later on again with the dog. And I do a lot of home cooking. So and I love working at home, giving me that option. So if I want to take a break from work, I'll go and, chop some vegetables because that's going to be in my, salad or chili or whatever I'm making. And obviously I really pay a lot of attention to the foods that I eat. So spend a lot of time in the kitchen, but I love it. And I make really easy, quick, simple meals. So I'm not about making a souffle, it's easy stuff that I can throw together in one pot and wash it. And this is what I work with my clients on too. The cooking doesn't have to be this onerous task. So yeah, so that's kind of my day.
I love that.
So,
And so I love you reminded about the caffeine. That's so important. I gave up caffeine, gosh, 2008 or nine, I want to say it was. Like I used to drink not one, but two 2 liter bottles of Diet Coke a day. It was horrible, horrible. And I just
wow.
decided one year for Lent, I'm like, okay, God, I need to give this up. This is about the time I'm going to do it. And I have. And like just recently, like I was going, like I was saying earlier, I was going to those comfort foods and I got rid of the sugar again. I'm like, I'm going to start with the sugars, get rid of that.
Yep.
And I was away in Denver and I tried something. I can't remember. It was some sort of sweet. I didn't know it was a sweet thing that was in something they gave us. I was like, oh my gosh, it just tasted so horrible. I was like, oh, this is nasty.
It's nasty. I know. Well, I think,
Yeah.
back to the self-care question, like for me, eating really good, nutritious, mostly plants. I do eat meat, but whole food, plant-based diet,
Right,
that is a form of self-care. I'm
right,
taking care of my body, feeding it what it needs. I have so much more energy because I'm not having these like artificial ingredients, these fake sweeteners, or the real sweeteners too, the sugar and basically like, ingredients like flour it's basically like sugar. Your body below the neck treats it
right.
just like sugar.
Yep.
So I try to avoid those, eat that stuff very, very minimally. And I have so much energy. And this is again like living my best life. Like I'm giving my body what it needs. So I sleep well. I wake up energized. I can work out every day. I can get through my day without a nap. So it's really, I'm feeding my body. That is a form of self-care. And like you said, like the soda, it's not just the caffeine that wasn't good for you, it's just all those artificial ingredients and
Right.
corn syrup and whatever else is in
Right.
soda.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I thought it was going to be so hard, but it was so easy to do. After the first week, I was like, I got this, it was
Yeah.
so,
And
so
then you
easy.
realize you don't really miss it. Like when you really
No.
kick that habit. I helped a client get off of Coke Zero.
Yeah.
And if interesting enough, that's what she came to me for. She was like, I shouldn't be having this. I know it's bad for me, osteoporosis and like all of these things that she was having irritable bowel syndrome. And so when we started looking at things, she said, we started talking about her home and she was like, my house is just a mess. Like I've got stuff like busting out of my closets and I can't use my dining table and I have all this like recycling all over the place. And we realized it was her home environment that was
Right.
keeping her from moving forward. So we put a plan together for her to clean up her house. Took about 6 weeks to really clear everything out, donations and all of that. And then she said, okay, great. Now I'm ready to get off Coke Zero. And it was, so again, back to the lifestyle factors, her
Yeah.
home environment was a mess and it wasn't working for her, it was stressing her out. And she couldn't improve on her diet until she sorted out her home environment.
Gosh, that's so true. Because my mom's here right now, but she's in the next room. My mom's here right now visiting us, and she lives in an environment where there's just not quite hoarder, but to that point of papers everywhere. And she's like, I just want you to come and clean. I'm like, I will come because she should not, we don't feel she should be living on her own. I'll come when you're ready. But then I
Mhm.
realized, I was talking to my brother the other day. I'm like, I think we have to do this in baby steps. I take myself out of the daughter and put the coach in place. And I'm like, I think we need
Mhm.
to baby step this. I think we need to go and I think we need to go through that stuff. I think we need to pack it up and let it stay in the house because her things she doesn't want to release yet and let it
Right.
stay there. And then come back in a few months and then maybe she'll be ready to be like, okay, it's not so hard to move everything, because
Mhm.
we're talking about moving her from California to Florida, so it's a big move.
Right.
But interesting, you're talking like the health and what we eat. So when she's here, she's eating greens and meats, all those things that she needs to eat. When she's there, if I don't order her DoorDash, she's not eating, or
Oh,
she's bags of potato chips all day long and Diet
oh,
Pepsi and hot tea all day long, and she doesn't move. She's not mobile. And when she goes home from here, she always has issues with her digestive system.
of
And
course.
so,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and she's like, stop talking to me about that, So it's like we love our family and we need to teach them that self-care too. And which leads me to the question, like, I know my son was 25 when he passed. My younger one's 23. So mine a little older, not too much than yours. But
Mhm.
tell me what your kids look like. What is when they look at you and what you're doing? Are they mimicking you? Are they? I mean, we know our kids were like,
Yeah.
oh, they want the junk, but like, how are they being inspired with what you're doing?
Yeah. So my older son, who's 19, he was quite overweight as a kid. And it was an issue and it started affecting him a lot. So he was about maybe eighth grade or so. It was, yeah, just about around the time when we were starting to get divorced. He was like, I'm tired of being fat. He said that. He was like, I'm fat and I'm tired of being fat. And of course, I don't want to talk about body shaming and whatever. We're like, we love you no matter what you look like. And he said, he's like, we were doing something in gym and I couldn't do it because I'm so big. And he felt bad. So he joined a gym and this all came from him. And he went, did the treadmill. I don't know. I picked him up 3 hours later, sweaty as anything. And he was like, I want to go back. And that was the start of him really getting his weight under control. He ended up losing 60 pounds. This is like eighth, ninth grader. Yeah, amazing. And of course, part of that is looking at the food. So he got really, really into looking at the foods that he was eating. He would ask me, how do I make this healthier? How do I, what should I be eating? And he had a massive transformation. So he's now a freshman in college and he ended up becoming a power lifter, which is it's a little niche sport. It's not weightlifting. It's not an Olympic sport, but there's like three big events that they do. Deadlift and I'm gonna forget it all. But anyway, so he actually holds three New York State records in his age and weight group for powerlifting, and it's all because he knows exactly what he needs to eat to build muscle, to stay lean, and to be healthy. And he now, he has trouble at the dining hall at school because it's really not where the healthiest food is. So he comes home and he's like, I'm sleeping better here. My stomach doesn't hurt here, just like your mom. I feel so much better because he's eating, my homemade food. And the younger one, he likes to cook. He's more, I feed him what we're making, what I make. So he doesn't get any special meals. So he eats very well, probably unknowingly. But last night he made us dinner and we rolled out like a pizza thing. We put all sorts of vegetables on the pizza. And so he likes to cook. Actually, that was a project during COVID. I taught my kids how to cook. So important.
I love that. I love that, and I think that's really important for the listeners is get your kids involved. I love, like, I'm on TikTok and I love watching the little girl. She gets up every morning. She has these positive quotes she says, and all these great positive things. She's like, I'm not going to let nothing bother me today. It's just so empowering. And we need to do that. Like, our kids have so much on their plates that we need to do something to help them. And to see that you did that, Suzy, during COVID, says, let's teach you this. Let's pivot and show you some of these things because it changes their lives. It sets up, how they're going to eat in the future. It sets up
Well,
all those habits.
yeah, it's a life skill that they're not going to teach that after math class or before biology. Like, it's just not going to happen. They don't even have home ec in schools anymore. So if the kids don't learn how to cook, and yet, the obesity problem in the United States, that's a whole other podcast. It's really a huge problem. And if the kids don't know how to cook and they don't know what's healthy for them, like, where's it going to come from? Right. I mean, we need to know. And, if you feel like our whole society, we outsource so many things. We outsource our taxes. We outsource our dry cleaning. We outsource, I don't know, people take care of our cars. Like, everything is outsourced. But if you outsource your food, you have no control over it. You don't know. And usually restaurants and obviously certainly food manufacturers, their big goal is to save money. So are they going to use the expensive avocado oil in your whatever. No, they're going to use some cheap seed oil that costs them pennies and it's highly inflammatory. So knowing the ingredients that are in your food and not outsourcing. I'm not saying you never can go out to eat. I mean, I go out to eat all, often, whatever, not often, but when on occasion. But I'm very, very picky about where I go and what I order. And I cook a lot of food at home. And it, again, doesn't have to be complicated. It's, not making really complicated things. I make easy, quick recipes. I'm busy just like everybody else. So, and, back to that whole thing of like, we don't have to be perfect that we talked about before.
I
That
love
is
it.
not the
Yeah.
goal. There is no such thing. That is not the goal in life to be perfect. It's just do the best you can. I like the sort of 80-20 rule.
Right.
80% of the time we do really well. And then therefore I can, like, for me, going out to eat, let's say, I would say it's probably more like 90-10, but 90% of the time I'm making really good choices with my foods. And 10% of the time I go out to eat. That doesn't mean I'm like having fried food all the time, but I go out to eat maybe 10% of the time.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. That's totally livable for me.
Yeah, and I like what you said, the 80-20, 90-10, whatever that works for you. And I love that you shared that. And like you said, they're not going to put the healthy stuff in there. I mean, I know when I used to go visit my granny, she had a whole huge garden, right? And now you go to the store, you're paying extra money because that's considered organic,
Yes.
and then you get these little tiny portions, and gosh help the eggs right now.
I
It's such a
know.
big joke, but okay, so I would be remiss not to ask you, because I'm sure listeners want to know, what's your favorite go-to quick recipe?
Oh my gosh. I just posted it on my Instagram the other day. I made a turkey chili. I actually made it twice because it was so good. Saute onion and garlic and ground turkey together. And let's see, what else? What did I put in there? I put in some cumin. I had some Cajun spice mix. That basically was like paprika, garlic powder, a little salt and pepper, a can of diced tomatoes. Um, and what else was in there? A can of Great Northern beans, and just let that simmer away and boil up. You can add a little bit of vegetable broth or chicken broth if it gets too, it's too thick. So you can get it the consistency you like, and you let it simmer for about 25 minutes. And it's delicious. It's so delicious. You can put in maybe baby spinach if you want. But lots of seasoning. That's kind of my thing because I like food to taste good. It's got to be pleasurable. So that's a nice, quick, easy recipe, and it can just sit and simmer on the stove for as long as you want. But 25 minutes. Oh, the other thing. Oh, put a chopped up sweet potato in there as well.
Oh, I was
Sweet
just
potatoes are wonderful, so nutritious, and yeah.
I was just
Mhm.
gonna say I could see a sweet potato in there. So
Yes,
I love
yes,
potatoes
exactly.
and chilies and stuff like that. It's so awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that recipe with us. I just love that. So we have what's called a Shiro League. It's a community of women. We meet every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. on Zoom.
Mhm.
And we get together as women. You can come, have clothes on, but you can come in your PJs, no makeup, whatever you want. But right now, what we're working on is, Suzy, we're working on what brings you joy and our not to do list. Oftentimes
Okay.
we create our to do list, right?
Mm.
So let's talk about what is on Suzy's not to do list right now.
Okay, so something I don't want to do.
Yeah,
Not.
something that keeps you. So if you think about what brings you joy, what do you have to put in the not to do list that's stopping you from doing your joy?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. There isn't anything that's stopping me from doing my joy. I feel like I worked so hard to get to this point. Um, let's see. I mean, I guess maybe being overscheduled. That's hard because if I don't have time to like do a short workout or get outside, that's gonna really set me off. And I feel like that's how I get my sleep under control because I'm moving my body early in the day. So if I overschedule myself, especially early in the morning, and I don't get that in, so I guess that would, yeah, overscheduling is gonna maybe a killjoy.
I think that's very common because I think
Yeah.
we do stretch ourselves too thin sometimes. That's the other thing that we work on in the Shiro League as well, is learning how to say no, overcoming people pleasing,
Yes. Well,
getting those boundaries.
I was about to say, it comes back to setting boundaries. Like that's like my sacred time in the morning. And I'm doing it really before anybody else is up. So like there shouldn't be anybody who's calling me or biting me at that point, if they're up that early. So that's a boundary that I set. And that's definitely, we work on that a lot with my clients because they have to set boundaries often with their exes big time. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to switch it to the joy list real quick. So, what are your top 3 things? If I said, Suzy, create me a list right now of 10 things that bring your joy, what's the first 3 things that come to your mind?
Oh, hiking in the woods, which I just did yesterday with a good friend, doing yoga. And if I don't can't get outside, whether, I don't know, it's too cold or something, just sitting by my window with the sun on my face. I love that. And just relaxing.
Okay, so those that are listening, you got to go watch the YouTube because if you could see Suzy's face just lit up when she talked about all 3 of those things, and that's what your joy list is supposed to do. It's supposed to uplift you, it's supposed to make you feel happy and bring that big smile to your face. I just love that. So Suzy, what's the next thing you're working on? You have got your course, but what else is upcoming for you?
So I just started doing a support group, which has been really amazing. So it's for divorced people, and it's from my Facebook page, which is the Divorce Detox on Facebook. And every the first Saturday of every month, we meet for an hour, 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we come together like this on a Zoom call and just share ideas, help support each other. Everybody's in a different stage of their divorce. And we talk about co-parenting challenges. We talk about setting boundaries, doing one good thing that brings you joy. We often, end that way. And that's something that I really want to grow. So that's really that's been so satisfying. So if anybody wants to join, they can find me at Divorce Detox on Facebook and get all the info there.
I love that, Divorce Detox. I think that's such a cool name for that. I have actually you'll have to go back and watch her, and if you're listening, watch the episode with Gabrielle McCallman. She does mortgages and she works with people who've been divorced, especially women that are going through divorce that want to buy a house. So she's great. I'll connect you guys together. I think
that would be great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Well,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say there's so much support when you're actually going through the divorce, but afterwards there's not that much. And that's really one of the things that inspired me to help people who, recover from their divorce. And I love to see that she's doing that as well, because it's a huge life change.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like through any kind of change, like you go through a big change, it's and all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's done. And even like with the loss of our son, we had all this support. Now everybody's gone. It's it's done. And it's like these things come up. Like yesterday we pay on our we didn't have plots at the time, so we bought our plots next to our son, of course. And then they're misapplying a payment, and they're calling us, you're late. I'm like, do you understand? Like you're ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, I mean, it's like how to handle those things that come up. And I think what you have, the Divorce Detox, is really powerful because things are going to come up that you're like, who do I turn to? And there's, like you said, there's not a lot out there, and that support and that peace. Like, how do I change my lifestyle? Maybe you were with somebody who wasn't healthy and you want to have a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. And so many questions come up, like, what do you do with your rings? What do you do with your wedding dress? Do you change your name for women? Do you go back to your maiden name? There's just a lot of things that, other people wouldn't have to really deal with. How do you do your taxes?
Right. Or even I can imagine, even like the big one's probably getting back out in the dating scene. Like, how do you
making those connections again, and, feeling good to be, taking those profile pictures so you can put them up at the dating apps, right?
Yeah.
And feeling confident in yourself, putting your best self out there so you're ready.
I think that's powerful. So you guys, I'll put all the links on there when we drop the website. The link for the episode will all be on there for Suzy, so you can get to Suzy. This has been so much fun. I just looked over. I'm like, oh my gosh, we got about 5 minutes left, and we have to get to Suzy's question. So Suzy was forewarned that we're going to shuffle our cards. Better questions, better life. So Suzy, you tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Oh, okay. Oh, and I think we know we've been talking about this question, but how do you care for others?
I try to listen to them. Let them tell me where they are rather than me putting judgment on them. Yeah. Because
And
everybody wants to be heard,
yeah,
right?
and I think that's powerful. I was, like I said, I was taught with a thing this morning talk about emotional intelligence, and that is important. Is like let somebody else share. Don't tell
Right.
them what you think. That's one thing with coaching. I don't tell you you have the answers. I believe inside. I just here to help you pull them out. Let's get them out of
Exactly.
you. You know the answers, but
Right.
you're not recognizing them, right?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I just sit back, like you said, and just listen and let
Yeah.
them share and then find out what's the top thing they need to work on that they want to
Right.
work on, and then just guide them through that. They know what they need to work on. It's just that
Right.
you need a coach to coach them through, just like the tennis thing. We need somebody to help me
Yeah.
hit the ball. I'm not a
Right.
great tennis player, no matter
Yeah.
what I've been taught, but yeah.
But
So I think
I would say it's not my job to tell you what to do, right? This is why I named my company True Wellness Within, because your true wellness has to come from within. It's not for me to tell you eat this and do that. That's not going to help you. You've got to come. So listening to that person and helping them pull it out and let them say it, because then they're like, oh yeah, this is what I need to do, and it's reasonable for me to do it, right?
I love that. So this has been so much fun. Suzy, it's been awesome having you on here. So tell everybody where that is listening, where they can go find you on social media or your website.
Yeah, so my website is truewellnesswithin.com. And I actually have a free quiz. If anybody is going through a divorce or has been divorced, they can go to truewellnesswithin.com/divorced with a D at the end, and they can take a quiz. Have you healed from the stress of your divorce? See what you score. And if anybody wants to get in touch, they can send me an email. My email is Suzy, Suzy, at truewellnesswithin.com. And on Instagram, I have a lot of recipes on True Wellness Within, and Facebook group I told you about is the Divorce Detox. So that's a nice way to for people to come together in community and support each other.
Thank you so much. And I want to remind everybody again that every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time is our Shira League. You can drop in for a visit if you want to. Just connect with me at pearl@wsliving.com and we can get you connected there. And also, if you're interested, we do have 8 spots for our retreat this coming September. You can go to wslivingretreats.com. We are on the beach in the Gulf Shores of Alabama. You are in your pajamas the entire weekend with no makeup. What a great way to work on your self-care
Sounds
and
great.
detox some things that are holding you back in your life. So that was that. So let us know again, wslivingretreats.com. And listen, you come into this world, you're a little rough on the outside. You've got this oyster, but when you turn it and open up it inside, you are this beautiful pearl. And I hope you go find your inner pearl of greatness. Have a great day.